This morning, we are honored to have 4 Westside members, Cindy Fountain, Debbie Rake, Stan Yoder, and Drew Lane, who will speak of their perspectives of trust. The speakers will come to the podium as it is their turn, as it's written in your order of service. They're going to share their thoughts, their individual thoughts about trust. We welcome them and await their words. Cindy, if you'll come.
Good morning, Westside. Almost noon. So one of the things I first noticed when I joined Westside was our beautiful carved chalice. I learned that a former Westsider, Charlie Boren, had sculpted it. I also learned that this chalice had been in the fire at Westside March of 2005 when the church was in a shopping center on McCart. Guess what else I found out? There are some charred places on the chalice, and one day I was setting the chalice and Myrtle McMahon gently scolded me that it must be set turned with the charred spots toward the congregation. So I told Myrtle thank you in the first service. The chalice is Unitarian Universalism's symbol. How fortunate are we at Westside to have such a beautiful representation. How fortunate that this beautiful wood carving survived that fire. And how fortunate that Westside survived. Westside's emergence from the fire speaks well to today's theme of trust. Could the members trust in each other? Trust in their own fortitude? Was it worth starting over again, this small band of Unitarian Universalists in Southwest Fort Worth? I invite you to close your eyes now. Close your eyes, that's an order. Now, imagine coming upon our building, a smoking hulk, black soot everywhere. Anything salvageable drenched with wet. Though it was smaller and maybe not as fancied up, you can open your eyes. The loss, the sadness must have been deep. I invited Westsiders who were here in 2005 to tell me their responses to the fire and how the idea of trust played into it. Myrtle wrote, I found myself sad seeing all the labors of love we had put into the building go up in smoke. It was the taking of a blank space and making it ours that was no more. Reed Bills took home salvaged coffee cups that she washed, even though she thought Westside might not survive this fire. Yet, as she said, the community worked together to make survival happen. Brenda McKeon, Myrtle's daughter, was upset at so much loss. But she replied, we did not lose our willingness to get together and continue in our Westside tradition of celebrating every Sunday. As a matter of fact, reading from the 2005 newsletter that Bill Terry sent me, Howard, Myrtle's husband and president at that time of Westside, secured for that very next Sunday a room at Harris Hospital. Diane Nixon wrote me about it. When we held services the next Sunday, we had a single meeting room, so we tried to hold children's religious education classes outside. Cold, wind, and a bit of rain drove us into the cars to hold our classes. So imagine kids having your class in the cars. How fun. The way our church leaders responded so quickly and creatively, we trusted that we would not only survive, but come out stronger. And for Myrtle again on the day of the fire, one of Westside's youth entered the building. When she carried out the beautiful wood chalice, just slightly charred, we all had joy in our hearts, knowing that if it could survive, we could too. Myrtle also writes about that very next Sunday. Attendance was almost overflowing. We needed each other, and we came together in solidarity. we would survive. Finally, Tom Woods reflected on 2 years following the fire. He said, in retrospect, there was something kind of exciting about the 2 years following the fire. It was amazing to see the leadership that was demonstrated, and I don't think we could have done it without the effective ministry of Russell Elevin. I was able to attend several UU events, and the way we handled our return from the ashes proved to be motivational to them. I'm so proud to be a member of Westside Unitarian Universalist Church, Tom said. And Tom, I'm proud to be a member too. I want to follow in those Westsiders' footsteps who found they could trust themselves and each other to keep pushing forward a vision of Westside. I'm trusting that this chalice will continue to be carried forth by every Westsider here and by Westsiders who haven't yet stepped through our red doors.
Good morning. I have a very personal reflection about trust. I recently read that Oxford professor Rachel Botsman says, trust acts as the bridge between the known, where we are comfortable, and the unknown, where we are fearful. She believes that trust can be defined as a confident relationship with the unknown. 2.5 years ago, circumstances in my family led me to move back to Fort Worth to live alone for the first time in over 50 years. I pretended to myself and everyone else that everything was all right. I figured, well, really, I was frightened. I figured that secure plans for the future were now impossible dreams. A fractured relationship with a loved one and the loss of the family life I cherished brought anguish that kept me awake every night. I was barely making it from day to day. My days and nights were marked by anxiety, depression, confusion, sadness, and shame. For some reason, shame that I was unable to be normal, or what I thought was normal. Now, after musing over Botsman's definition, I look back and realize I was possibly experiencing a crisis not born entirely out of the situation with my family or my subsequent complete change of lifestyle, but in many ways, a crisis created by almost complete loss of trust in myself, in my ability to regroup, to take care of myself, to productively move into the unknown ahead of me. To write this reflection on trust, I Googled, because who doesn't, and found a list of things to do to regain trust in oneself. Here's my favorite, because it mirrors what I began doing 2 years ago. Notice what you're feeling. Experience the feeling in your body. Where does it sit? Identify the need that drives the feeling. Separate the present from the past. And my very favorite, do not look for milk in a hardware store. Mary Oliver said it differently, and what she wrote sang to me 2 years ago. She wrote in her poetic voice, "This is the first, the wildest, and wisest thing I know, that the soul exists and it is built entirely out of attentiveness." I don't have a solid definition of soul or where it sits, and when I try to define it, I suffer from it doesn't matterism. but attentiveness. I think that matters a lot when you're working to regain trust in something, in someone else, in yourself. I began again, slowly and simply, practicing attentiveness through meditation. First, quiet attention to breathing. It's not always easy, but it's simple. Then, to watching without judgment, to thoughts and feelings as they drift by. It's called bare attention. Non-judgmental attentiveness can lead, as you go through your days, to suddenly becoming aware of behaviors or thoughts that bring up a familiar fear, or doubts, or anger, or cravings like ice cream. And one day you realize that you, yourself, just through thinking certain things, usually from the past, manufactured that fear, that doubt or anger, or that craving. You may even begin to experience the joy of laughing at yourself for creating your own misery out of the blue. When I was able to laugh at myself, that was the beginning of making friends with myself again. Further down the road, attentiveness can lead to acceptance of our humanness, and it can lead to living in the now, not the past. It helped me to begin to trust myself again. Then there is that last point on my favorite list, the milk in the hardware store. I finally realized that if what I wanted was family time, and the family I had was currently not available for that isolating myself wasn't a very effective way to get what I wanted. So I rejoined this progressive UU church that I had joined previously 17 years ago. And I knew that it would lead me to becoming a part of the life of this community with things that I had passion in. The bonus here are the friends I've made who have become like family. Believe me, y'all are much more welcoming and more loving and more caring and a lot more fun to hug than anything I've ever found in a hardware store. My story isn't a Pollyanna live happily ever after tale. Like all of you, I have things currently that concern me and frustrate me, but trusting that I can deal with what comes up makes all the difference. Meditation practice has led me back to that confident relationship with the unknown, to responding differently to things I cannot change, to trusting myself, most of the time anyway, to make good decisions. And it has led me out of isolation to a family of friends I can work with, sing with, play with, and can depend upon to ask me to volunteer for things a lot. Tasks that will keep me real, like the Velveteen Rabbit. Thank you for letting me share.
Trust is a very old word in the English language. It probably comes from an Old Norse word denoting help, confidence, and firmness. It's also related to an Old Germanic base for true, truth, and probably tryst. All of these terms suggest confidence, reliance, and support. The Westside congregation is based on a covenant, which means we agree to trust each other in certain ways. They are spelled out in our Covenant of Right Relations, which is on the back of your order of service. We covenant to build a religious community guided by compassion and sustained by respectful relationships. I trust you. I trust you when you come to church to become my family. I trust you to not only welcome, but even embrace me. I trust you to accept me, to depend on me, and most of the time, to like me just for who I am. I trust you to agree with me on some important fundamental values, even while you disagree with me vigorously about other stuff. I have faith in you as members of this beloved community. What is problematic for me to trust is to trust myself, to have faith in me. Now, I've been taught from childhood, as most of us have, that bragging is not acceptable. You don't blow your own horn. You don't say out loud that you're good at something. It's arrogant. It's showing off. But some of us are champions at self-doubt. I am. If second-guessing oneself were an Olympic sport, I would have a chest full of medals. Can I really do this? I think maybe that if I could say out loud, I did a good job, I'm good at this, it would be more likely that I would believe it. I want to trust that I can do it, whatever it is. So what do? I've been working on the solution to this for a long time, and I have tried a couple of things. I can allow other people to give me a compliment without dismissing out of hand what they say. I can say, thank you, instead of, oh, it was nothing. Another thing I try to do is to catch myself when I am being negative and tell myself, no, it's fine. But the affirmation to another person is a really hard thing to manage. So here goes. One of the things I do is volunteer to teach English as a second language to adults. I have no formal training. I've learned on the job. And I have found a niche where I think I'm effective. I'm good at it. It feels really funny to say that out loud. But I think it's good for me. So now, I am challenging every one of you in the next 24 hours to tell somebody about something you are good at, something you trust yourself to do well. Just say out loud, I am good at, and then trust their reaction.
And it comes to pass on that morning, a pilgrim asks the master, Master, what of trust? The master thoughtfully gazes into the sky, adjusts his robe on the rock, scooches over a bit to the right, and speaks thusly. Once thou wouldst protect thine assets, yea, verily, even unto the 7th generation, then seek thou a lawyer who can set up an irrevocable financial trust, preferably on a distant Greek island. No, interrupts the supplicant. I mean not money trusts. I seek to understand trust between humans, trust betwixt a mating pair, trust among nations. He looks sharply at the master and knock off the King James English crap. This is 21st century Fort Worth already. Ah, says the master, studying the grass, stroking his chin. Yes. The silence stretches out. A bird calls. Finally, the master looks up. Trust between two has more value than gold, but cannot be bought. Trust is firmer than iron, but can disappear like smoke. But of what, the petitioner asks, is trust made? The master answers, trust is made of confidence that an opportunity to harm will not be exercised, or that a promise will be kept. From whence comes this confidence? The master meets the eye of the questioner. From testing. He pauses for several bird calls. Permit me a story. Two soldiers were chosen for a dangerous spying mission. One told the other, if we cannot trust each other in this mission, we will both surely die. He removed his weapons and the armor over his belly. Choose, he commanded, lying on his back. Rip out my bowels and escape, or let us work together. He was helped up. In testing Soldier 2, by becoming totally vulnerable, the first learned he could trust the second. Thus we see trust builds a bridge across risk and vulnerability. Trust is acting on the confidence that the exposed belly will not be ripped out. Can trust be built less dramatically? Queries the student. Or must it come from life or death situations? Most trust comes more slowly, with less drama. The stakes are more typically embarrassment rather than disembowelment. Failure at love rather than failure at living, or not receiving the delivery as promised. Risks and vulnerabilities usually begin with little to lose, and confidence builds as short footbridges hold. As vulnerabilities increase without any ripped out bellies, conditional trust becomes a stronger verb, an action, a confident counting upon the object of the verb, the one trusted. Gradually, the bridge between grows mighty. Can trust be established, the questioner poses, yet later be betrayed? Yes, says the teacher with bowed head. That is a source of one of life's deepest anguishes. Then why take the chance to trust if deep anguish is an outcome? Is it not better to remain armored and invulnerable to disembowelment? The smallest of smiles tugs at the lips of the master. We love things that bring joy and contentment, although we know these things can sometimes mutate, he says. Trust is one such joy. Should we avoid all things that bring joy and contentment to avoid any possibility of mutation into pain? Pain and disappointment come not only from mutated joy, they come in many forms, through many doors. Hear me now. Nothing is guaranteed to be permanent. But if we bypass budding joy out of fear of its loss, we miss out on whatever joy might have been. The questioner is silent. Only you, the master finishes, can answer the question, is it worth the risk to trust?
Thank you to all the speakers this morning for sharing your viewpoints on trust.